a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He's not a hack. He is not from the right. He has no reason to put this out, or so you would think. He would have no reason to put this out about Martin Luther King if it weren't true. He is the guy who is the expert on Martin Luther King. He is embraced by everybody on the left and everybody who's a King fan. This is the ultimate biography of Martin Luther King. He wrote it in the 80s. Now, he has just come out with a document that says that the government has a tape. It has not been released, but it has been heard.
Well, there's a memo describing it written by the FBI.
That he has. The FBI has heard it.
Yes, and they transcribed it and summarized it.
Correct. And he has that memo. So it hasn't been heard by anybody today that we know of. This is just a memo that is showing what tapes they have on Martin Luther King. We know that J. Edgar Hoover was making tapes of Martin Luther King. Kennedy and Johnson were spying on King. Because Hoover thought that he was a communist and also thought he was very low of moral character. Now, these things have always been denied. Well,
the moral character one, there's been evidence of, right?
Yes.
I mean, in the story, it talks about how they thought he had 10 to 12 mistresses throughout his life, and they think now the number's more like 40 or 45. It's a lot.
Okay.
It keeps you busy.
Now, the question that you should ask is, because we don't know if until this tape is released in 2027, and I would urge, for history's sake, that tape is released, if it exists, or any other tapes are released long before 2027. In fact, in the next 18 months to 2 years, because digital audio deep fakes are not good yet. By 2027, you will not believe your eyes and you will not believe your ears. So any audio tape after really 2020, 2022, you're not going to believe. It won't make any impact. So if you want to know if this is true, that tape and any other tapes like it for anything should be released now, because we don't have the technology to fake them yet. Why would this guy do this? This guy is a celebrated leftist. This puts him in the outs. And you could say, well, he just wants to tell the truth. Okay, maybe so. Maybe so. When did he get this memo? Who gave this memo to him? And who is he? Now, we know that he's been a lefty, but what does that mean? In his own words, he is what did he call himself? A quintessential Bernie Sanders donor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he said he is also a democratic socialist and has been at times an enthusiastic participator in democratic socialism. Okay?
This is the author.
This is the author that has released this information. Why would you release this information? Why would you release this information now? Well, what is democratic socialism? Democratic socialism, for it to come true, several things have to happen. But one, you must destroy anyone who talks about the individual. Democratic socialist, it is not about the individual. It is about the collective. What is the hardest thing for a socialist to get around, or any of these people who are talking about social justice now, the way it's interpreted today? The biggest obstacle they have is Martin Luther King, because he is still for individual salvation.
Content of character.
Content. Judge me by the content of my character, not the color of my skin. And I see a day when blacks and whites can play together. Okay? That's his message. Well, that's a very conservative message, quite frankly.
Today, especially.
Yes. His message of America, live up to your founding documents. All men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain rights. That is not a democratic socialist message, nor is it helpful to those who are democratic socialists. You must destroy that. But you have to destroy it in such a spectacular way. Now, think of this. If this is true, that tape was released.
That he watched and laughed as a rape was going on.
As it was going on, if he was saying these horrible, horrible things to a woman in an orgy, is he a guy we have a Martin Luther King Day for? Is he a guy we have statues for, boulevards named after? That's a really bad guy. If you're going to pull down statues of people from 1800, you've got to pull down a guy from 1960, because 1960 was not about that either. At least that's not what we were told he was about.
And I'm sure you can find many civil rights activists that did not participate in rapes.
Exactly right.
So you could have a holiday still about some civil rights activist, but can you have a holiday for a guy who watched a rape on tape?
And laughed?
And laughed about it? I don't know if you can. Can you have statues for that person? I don't know if you can.
Even though you can still say what he said was good, you cannot hold him up to be. You can hold his words up, but you cannot hold him up to be that guy. Okay? What they have to do is destroy him and his words. And that's the problem. They don't just destroy Thomas Jefferson. They destroy his words.
Right. And because he was such a bad person, all of his words are disqualified from being positive.
Correct.
And to your point here, listen to this quote from the author. He said, the new information, quote, poses so fundamental a challenge to his historical stature as to require the most complete and extensive historical review possible. I mean, that is like, if this is true, and again, we don't 100% know that it is, though it's in FBI documents, and there's apparently a tape showing that he actually did this. If it's clear on tape, I mean, can the American people stand by and say, allow that to go on? You know, you take Martin Luther King Day a national holiday.
And what does that do what does that do to African Americans?
I mean, guys, you think the Bill Cosby thing was jarring, right? Like, here's a guy who's a popular sitcom host in the 80s, and or like a really popular singer and the king of pop. He had his issues. This guy's like the guy when it comes to civil rights in the United States of America. And I would say a rape is a violation of civil rights. I'm going to go out and say it. I think it is. So it's going to be difficult to hold if that tape exists, and it is as described in this story and multiple others. It's almost incomprehensible. You'd have a holiday for that person. I mean, right?
So that is the story. That's the story. But here's the real story behind that. Why now? Who leaked that? How did it get to him? When did it get to him? Why is he an honest broker, or is he a democratic socialist who is a strong activist who understands you've got to destroy him? Is this part of a movement of destroying all of our heroes and turning everything upside down and inside out?